Thank you so much. This is Erin here. So first of all, we'd like to thank CUDA and the Carsharing Association for inviting us to be part of this webinar today. Pam and I together have been working over the past couple of years to bring the two modes of transit and car sharing together, and we've collaborated on a few humble projects we'd like to share with you today. And then the second half of our presentation, we'll talk a little bit about how we see our relationship as transit and car sharing developing into the future in order to provide more sustainable mobility options for Halifax residents. So just setting a little bit of geographic context for those of you unfamiliar with Halifax, also known as Halifax Regional Municipality or HRM. We cover a huge geographic area with some pretty stark differences in landscapes. We have a wide variety of landscapes from the very urban downtown core, as you'll see on the top right of your screen, to the very rural and unurban, but very iconic landscape of Peggy's Cove, which you see in your bottom left hand of your screen. So we have all sorts of land uses and diversity of land uses that kind of are reflected in our very diverse transportation needs as well. So Halifax, or HRM, is probably one of the largest municipalities in Canada. It covers over 5,000 square kilometers. In fact, it covers the area the size of Prince Edward Island, not to make fun of our wonderful neighboring province, but just to highlight the point that Halifax, as a regional municipality with a wide variety of land use types and industry, the demand for mobility is high and the diversity of that demand is pretty extreme. And as a municipal service, Halifax Transit, with a business model of fixed route, fixed schedule, like a lot of other transit agencies, we're not always in a position to meet the needs of all our residents in all places at all times. So as a point of interest, this dot here shows the general area of where we provide conventional transit service. It looks pretty small, but we like to think of it as small but mighty. It represents approximately 75% of the municipality's population is within our service area. So zooming in a little bit closer to what we call our urban transit service boundary, you'll see this red line is what was approved for us by our regional council a few years ago. This delineates our transit service area, and with very few exceptions, it's our direction, our policy direction, that any new transit service that we can introduce has to be within that line. The green lines reflect our existing routes, including those that were grandfathered outside of the service boundary. So for the transit data enthusiasts in the crowd, we're a pretty mid-sized transit system for Canada. We have a fleet of about 330 vehicles, including 5 harbour ferries. If you're ever in Halifax, you should definitely check those out. Our service area is almost 400 square kilometers. We serve about 315,000 residents, with about 65 fixed routes and 2 ferry routes. So while our area of focus as a transit service provider in the strictest sense is within that red line, as a municipality, we also like to think more broadly about the importance of mobility for all residents and all communities, be they urban, suburban, or rural. We've had to think pretty creatively, and we've recently entered into some great partnerships with mobility service providers, both inside and outside of the service boundary. And the one we'd like to focus on today is some cross-promotion we've done with our local car sharing service. Tying back a little bit to Lorenzo's presentation, in 2010, HRM introduced the SmartTrip program, which is a transportation demand management program offered to employers within the municipality. So for a pretty nominal annual fee, employers large and small can register themselves and their employees in programs which helps to facilitate sustainable commuting, promotion, subsidization, and education. The primary objective of the program is to decrease single occupancy vehicle commuting and reduce reliance on personal vehicles generally. A couple of the programs that's included in SmartTrip are up on the screen here. It includes Guaranteed Ride Home, an online carpooling and ride matching, Smart Cycle, where we help sort of facilitate learning to cycle safely for new cyclists, and the ePass program, which is definitely our most popular program. It's an annual subsidized transit pass paid for via payroll deduction. We like to think of the ePass as kind of like a gateway drug to more sustainable commuting. it makes getting on the bus that much easier, particularly when it's paired with a reduced cost membership to a local car sharing service. But wait, Erin, why would a transit agency be interested in promoting a relationship with cars? Aren't you working against yourself? Well, actually, we found that to be quite the opposite. In our experience, transit and car sharing together just makes a ton of sense. When you sort of break it down, what both services are looking for is flexible, seamless mobility for participants and residents without the requirement of vehicle ownership. In our situation, we found that each mode really plays to its strengths. Some type of trips are not possible or practical by transit in Halifax, particularly given our urban transit service boundary. And car share is not set up to accommodate daily trips like commutes in the way that transit can. We've also found that because a household can go from 2 cars to 1 car to 0 cars, is a household which is using car share, transit, and active modes. Residents are happier, healthier, and wealthier. And it just has generally made a lot of sense for us. So here, I'll pass it off to Pam to talk about our partnership to date.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's Pam, and I'm going to talk a little bit about car sharing, just because I'm not sure about how much people know about it. But car sharing is a service, and we're a service provider. And all of the car share organization modes require people to join as members, but they pay as needed. They pay by the time and or the time and mileage they drive. Different operators have different business models. But the operator of the car sharing service provides the vehicle maintenance, repairs, insurance, everything. And so all you do is you get in and drive. We have 2 modes that are car sharing encompasses. It's what is one-way and two-way, round trip. And basically the round trip are what we call station-based, where they're placed permanently in a network around the city, and people reserve them ahead of time. You go to the car, you use it, and you bring it back. You can take it anywhere in North America, but you have to bring it back to the same spot. And the one-way is done within a zone where you can pick up a car in a zone. You can take it anywhere you want in North America, but you have to bring it back and place it somewhere on the zone on residential streets or depots that are provided for the one-way cars. So basically, we always talk about car sharing in the context of a multimodal approach to mobility, as Erin and Lorenzo talked about. So this just gives you an idea. Basically, you know, it's a mode for every activity or distance or wherever, because we cannot do it alone. We all have to play a role in which our mode is best for, and creating cities that have the design to create the ability to walk, bike, transit, and when you need a car, use car sharing mode or ride hailing or taxis. So we were talking about the dynamic duo. This is some of the things. I'm just going to go rapidly into some of the things that we've done together, which has been fantastic. So we have what we call dynamic duo, where the person who joins car share can also get a yearly pass with Halifax Transit, which is not offered retailing in a retail way. So you can only get it through ePass, through the ePass program that Erin talked about, or through car share. So that's exclusive offer through car share. And so you get a discount from car share, you get a discount and an annual pass from transit, making it compelling. We call it the dynamic duo because basically you don't really need anything else if you have those both that are very convenient. So we've done some collaborative advertising, just like this one. These were the panels that you see here. The panel that you see here was in all of the buses that went around Halifax for a number of months, and we can plan to continue this one with different visuals and focusing on different people who ride the buses. This is another example of what they do in Montreal. So collaborative advertising is very crucial. So it basically legitimizes each and that you're working together. We also have a new integrated mobility plan where these, fare payment, you have to do it, you have to make it really compelling for people to get out of their personal use vehicles, make it as smooth as possible, make it convenient. And so this is the way that cities are moving ahead of time, doing fare payment. So, physical integration, meaning that you can get out of a bus and get into a car share, and digital integration, meaning that you can use a mobility pass to get into both. The network into collaborations, what we were all talking about, this is to show, Montreal, we have Via Rail, Translink, all of the organizations working together with car sharing to make it a smooth operating. And basically, we're here just to make residents and our members happy. So how can we do that? How can we do that more? How can we collaborate more in doing that? Of course, land use is a big land use and working with developers, as Lorenzo talked about. And just so you know, like for instance, in Vancouver, over 250 cars are placed with developers in the developments. They actually have to buy the car. The bylaw is very, very good. And so make sure that the bylaw, that there's an actual physical relationship between the developer and the car share organization. And so you can look at Vancouver's bylaw is the best, in my opinion. Montreal, they have cards where you can get into car sharing, and you can also use it for transit and for the bike. So that makes it really easy and compelling for people because it's so easy, and you can also put money on that.
So the timing is pretty great here in Halifax in terms of building on integrated mobility, sort of almost our integrated mobility plan, which was approved by our regional council late last year, sort of grew up through the same way that CUDA sort of arrived at the integrated mobility toolbox, which is pretty fantastic. We got some pretty strong direction about investing and prioritizing our resources as a municipality on building mobility and talking about capacity of moving cars. So right now we have some excellent, we're in an enviable position, I would say, to develop this partnership. Our integrated mobility plan identifies some specific ways for us as a municipality to support car sharing, specifically by studying the role of car sharing in rural and sort of ex-urban communities. It's a study we're developing now. I think it's nearing completion. We've also been directed to expand car sharing availability by collaborating in areas where there may be some desire for more mobility options, but transit may not be able to provide sort of the full package. Also, we've been asked to look at providing on-street parking for car sharing in residential areas, sort of car share specific permits within the downtown core in order to facilitate the one-way depots that Pam was talking about, and just generally furthering the development of options through the SmartTrip program to cross-promote partnerships such as ours.
So this is just a visual to show that, basically if you have a goal of getting people out of their personal use vehicles for whatever policy reason, then car sharing needs to be a part of it. It simply just makes a lot of sense, as we've been saying. And there's evidence too. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but basically it just shows that after joining car sharing, after having passes like the ones that we have with Halifax Transit, that transit ridership goes up. And also we have a mode share, looking at the shifts of how we can actually decrease the number of cars and increase the number of transit and car sharing car sharing ridership. So this is just to show that there's lots of evidence too that if you put these policies in place and work with the car share organization, that it has real impacts, because it reduces anywhere from 10 to 15 cars per car share car takes off the road. And so if your goal, again, is to reduce personal use vehicles, seek out the partnership with the car share organization, because it's highly unlikely that you will get people out of their personal use vehicles unless they have a vehicle that they can drive option, which is car sharing. So if you don't have a car share organization within your city, then you could approach a car share organization because they're basically turnkey operations at this point in time. And also, if you have one, then to seek out partnership and how you can work with them even better. Because if you have the goal of moving people with fewer cars, then car sharing is crucial to that endeavor. And I just wanted to actually, one of the things I wanted to say is that if you are in this field and if your policies or your goals to reduce personal use vehicles or fleet use vehicles, like there's a lot of even cities that use a lot of fleets where you could even change that as well, so reduce capital costs. It is your job to make it so compelling for people that they will easily give up their personal use vehicles and use transit, car share, walk, and biking.